to really get people to know us and what we're doing, right? But just so you guys know, before we get started on that, I want to make sure that you guys know what's happening. Again, this is the pre-party session. The main event happens Wednesday, April 13th and 14th, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And just so you know, we have a little dance segment. We're going to pop. We're gonna have a little dance segment happening at 10:45 before the actual event begins. You can come in, have a little fun, just get ready for an amazing sessions that we're gonna have on the 13th and 14th. So make sure that you get your ticket. If you do not have your ticket, they are free. The live stream is free. So that free ticket gets you essentially watching the show live. If you want to watch it again and again and again, I know you're going to watch it again and again, and you're going to watch the pre-party because there are some amazing sessions coming your way. You want to make sure that you go to fempreneuronline.com/event to get your free ticket, or upgrade to the Fempreneur Coach Connection Pass. That will get you the replays and some amazing speaker bonuses. But let's get to it, because I know that we have people on live. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're not on live, no problem. You're watching the replay. Hey, you are able to watch the replay inside our event platform, actually, called Hopin. If you've never heard of it, Hopin, it's Hopin. Get it, 2 P's. Make sure you go over there if you're actually in the event, and say hi in a reception area. It is open. Make sure you do that. So first up, a wonderful lady coming up. We had the chance to talk about some things in the podcast, which is actually debuting Monday. Her episode will be live Monday, and I'm so excited that she is going to do it. We'll talk more about the episode, and we'll talk about the podcast and all these other things. We will be talking about it. But Hannah, she's going to go over how we're going to lead our group coaching programs and how do we develop that leadership skill set. Because does everyone know how to be a leader? I don't know. I'm one of those people that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm a leader, like I people follow me, but like, I don't know if I lead them anywhere. But we're going to talk about it and how her best tips for that. And then later on, Jocelyn, she's going to be talking about batching and how to best batch our content and moving forward and developing our group coaching program. So I'm super excited for her to talk about that. But first, I want you guys to get to know a little bit about Hannah. Hold on.
Our next guest is a mentor, speaker, and founder of the Lead Well Summit, who's been featured in Forbes, Thrive Global, Women Entrepreneur, ABC, CBS, NBC, and much more. She is a strategic partner for visionary entrepreneurs as they scale beyond 6 figures, build wealth, and become well-resourced leaders so they can truly create greater impact. Here to describe the make of a leader for a group coaching experience, please welcome to Fempreneur Coach Connection Live, Hannah Koenig.
Yes, welcome, Hannah.
Hey, I am so excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. Did you see? I hope you saw that video. And sometimes I'm like,
an intro.
I don't know. Do people see intros? I don't know, but I hope you saw it because I work hard on it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I think one of the best intros I've had thus far.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Once we and just so you guys know, again, Hannah is going to be on the podcast. Her episode is debuting Monday. And for you guys who don't know, Fempreneur Coach Connection Live is inspired by the podcast. So we have, I think January, we really sat down, Hannah and I, and talked about what it means to be a leader. What is a leader? And, she just kind of coached me through some personal stuff too about what that means. And, it was a really great time. So Hannah, thank you so much for doing that podcast. And again, it is debuting Monday. So go and make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. I'm super excited.
You are so welcome. That was such a powerful conversation. I can't wait for it to air. I can't wait to re-listen to all the things we shared. And what I love most is we really redefined relationship in that or not leadership in that conversation and our relationship to it. Because a lot of people have a very less than ideal experience of leadership. And we can't become the leaders that we're here to be until we unpack that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And during the episode, you guys, again, go to wherever you listen to podcasts, go ahead and just search right now, Fempreneur Coach Connection. It's going to come up, the very first episode where just little me talking. But Monday, Hannah's will debut. We talked about the 3 pillars of leadership. I thought that was powerful as we went through each of them. Can we go through them, just refresh our memory really quickly on those 3 pillars?
I actually don't have them in front of me.
That's okay. I got you. Awareness.
Yeah,
awareness, appreciation, and accountability. Those are the 3 that we talked about. So, yeah.
Yes. So, and we dive deeper into that in the episode itself. And we're talking about self-leadership before we even talk about leading other people. And what I want to clarify in all of that is every one of you who is listening right now is in a leadership role, whether you acknowledge it or realize it at all, right? We have multiple opportunities to lead in our daily lives, in our professional lives, at the grocery store. We have opportunities to stand up, to speak up. So we start with awareness because clarity is power. So self-awareness, right? Appreciation is the way that we acknowledge and hold ourselves and we hold others. And awareness, appreciation, and
accountability.
And without accountability, what are we held to, right? So we can be great people with great values, but accountability is what keeps us in integrity as we move. I prepped a whole bunch of other stuff for today. So that's why I don't have the pillars with me.
It's okay. It's okay. Hey, look, I went back in the day. I was like, let me see what, exactly, because you're going to learn, again, in depth, all those 3 pillars during the podcast episode. But I really am interested in this whole leadership idea in the group coaching space, because, again, I feel like I can be a leader. I'm a leader in my home. I can be a leader in the classroom. But when it comes to let me lead a group of people through an experience, like a group coaching experience, what kind of skills do I need? I know you said I probably already have it, but what kind of skills do I even need to do that?
Yeah. So moving beyond just the self-leadership, I first want to talk about how a lack of leadership is costing you money when it comes to running your business, and especially in group containers. So I see this happen all the time where people will have an experience running a group coaching program, running a mastermind, running any kind of live experience where multiple people are involved. And if you don't feel comfortable in your leadership, because you're dealing with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different kind of people who might meet your work at different places or interact with it differently. And if you are struggling to serve 5 clients, right, you have someone in there who's not quite getting it, or who's kind of like a rogue client who just seems to always be throwing things off. If that experience is uncomfortable for you serving 5 people, then it's likely that you're not going to feel excited about serving 10, serving 15, serving 20. And so I often see people internalize something that didn't work with a smaller group because they didn't quite have the leadership skill set to hold and facilitate that space, or even the perspective to understand maybe why different things weren't working. And then they subtly self-sabotage, calling in more people. So first and foremost, right?
Okay, hold on. Wait. You're telling me, so when it didn't feel right with a small number, not increasing the number is not the right answer? This, I would think that probably would be my first instinct, is it's just because it's not enough people. I need more. And you're literally telling me I'm self-sabotaging myself in that way.
But, the voice in the back of your head is going to be well, now you have all these people. It didn't work well with 5 people. What happens when something is off with more, right? What happens when this issue is amplified by 10?
I don't know what happens.
now I'm naked in front of a bigger audience, right? Now that challenging feeling is multiplied. So a lot of people think, logically, in the forefront of our brain, we think, oh, okay, the numbers make sense. I want more people, or I would be more excited. I would perform better for more people. And then that little voice in the back of your head is going to go, that inner critic, she's going to be like, really? Because this wasn't so hot, right?
Yeah.
So in and of itself, that often we count ourselves out when we don't have the leadership skills or the awareness to know how to manage different types of personalities, different learning styles, different group dynamics. So not only the way people interact and relate to your work and the curriculum, but the way they interact with each other in the space. If we don't know how to navigate that, we will avoid. We will subtly avoid opportunities and experiences for more of that, right? It's very emotional intelligence, right? It's kind of counterintuitive in that we don't lean into the things that give us the greatest opportunity for learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, hold on. Let's unpack that a little bit more, because you just said we don't lean into the things that that causes us to learn or makes us to learn. Like, are you just saying that we get so uncomfortable that we don't want to learn from our experience, or what do you mean by that?
Not naturally. So it's natural to avoid things that feel difficult.
Yes.
Right?
I don't want to learn any lessons.
Oh, that's not my strength. Me and tech, right? Me and tech, and me and cooking. Those are two things that I'm like, if somebody else can make the meal, I will be here to eat. But like, if it involves me being in the kitchen, I just disappear. I evaporate. Right. What happened? So that's really important. And then there's something else that I want you to understand about leadership when it comes to group coaching, before we even talk about practical tips and application, is that leadership is the opportunity for learning beyond the curriculum. So whatever you're teaching, if you're teaching people how to host an incredible event, if you're teaching people how to manage their money, right? There's a curriculum that people are learning, but your clients will learn just as much, if not more, from the way you lead and facilitate in the space as they will from your curriculum itself, right? So how you listen, how you show up, how you respond when there's a difficult question or a situation, that's all modeling for people. It's exemplifying what's okay and what's not okay. We learn so much from these subtle cues. So for example, I remember watching a leader in the online space, this is before I started my business, show up. I signed up for this program and there was this live component and something with the tech wasn't working and they're trying to get it to work and they have this timeline. And in the moment she goes, actually, you know what? We're going to do it like this. Right? And pivots in the moment. And that for me, I remember thinking, oh, that's an option, right? You can show up and deliver imperfectly and it's not a problem. Because that's not the reason we're here, is the work. Right? But there are so many different examples of that. And I can give you a negative example. So in 2020, after the George Floyd murder, and when there was a lot of activity going on in the online entrepreneurial space, a lot of necessary activity, I was in a very large mastermind container. I think there were like 40, maybe like 50 people in this space. And the person running and facilitating that was all over the place, publicly on social media, calling people out, saying this and that, very performative activism. But in the container itself, where people were struggling and having, emotional experiences and having hard time showing up for their business, it was a ghost town. Right? People were disappearing. Nothing was being talked about. And so it created this disconnect of like, oh, which is also a learning example, right? Here's what not to do.
Yeah.
Right?
And we have plenty of those when it comes to group coaching programs or coaching, whatever. We definitely have a lot of those.
Yeah. So your clients are learning from you beyond just the words that you're saying, beyond the curriculum that you've established. They're learning from how you interact with it. They're learning from how you walk your talk, so to speak. They're learning from the level of permission that you exemplify or give yourself. When someone says something that challenges our perspective, right? Is it okay? Is this a safe space for dialogue? Is this a safe space for learning? All of these subtle cues in the way that you show up help us learn how to better lead, help us learn how to interact with the work, help us learn how to show up.
That's a way that I haven't really thought of as you're talking, Hannah. Like, you're literally telling me, like, my actions, how I respond to things, how I react, respond, whatever the words may be, plays a crucial role in that group coaching experience. More people will feel comfortable with me if they see that, okay, yes, she is addressing certain things that matter to me, or she knows how to pivot, or she is comfortable in imperfection. I never thought about that. I just was like, well, I need to lead them and I need to teach them. But you're telling me a lot more. You're going, leaders of a group coaching program should be able to be the example, should show with their actions, with how they talk, what they're saying, that, it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to pivot. It's okay, giving permission to people within the group to do those same things. I hadn't thought about that. I really just thought, like, okay, well, I'm going to lead them in the information, and I'm going to make sure they know exactly what they're supposed to learn. But I hadn't thought about that at all, actually. So thank you very much for opening my mind to that. And I hope that you guys open your mind to that as well, because I was like, oh, they are looking at more than just what I'm teaching. They're hearing, they're seeing how I'm doing things. So yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And a lot of times people choose to join your group coaching program over, the hundreds and thousands of other group coaching programs that are available in the online space, partially for you, right? They feel a connection to you.
Yes, I agree with that. There's many times I have said, there's that teaches the exact same thing, quite frankly, but that person is what drew me to that particular program, and who they are and how they show up. Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. And for my perfectionists who are listening, or those of you who have perfectionist tendencies, again, this is not leadership in meaning, okay, now I have to be infallible, right? I have to be this perfect example of my value system, of the work of leadership. That's not what we're talking about. And so we can get into some tips and how-tos if you'd like.
Yes. Hello. Yeah. This is what we are here for. First off, the wisdom that you bring, that, like, I'm sitting here like, oh, that's what you did for the podcast too. I was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. But you really, like, that piece right there, especially, like, they want to see your actions. I love that. Absolutely. But yeah, let's get to the strategies too, because I know people want to know. And definitely throw in the comments if things are resonating for you, because Hannah always makes me think just a little bit deeper. So I'm sitting here like, oh, wait, I have a show to produce. Let me stop listening to her. Let me start talking, instead of just sitting there, like, getting all of it from it. But yeah, share with us some of your strategies.
Yeah. So the first is obviously leading by example. This is walking your talk. And what I mean by this is that leadership often spotlights, like, it shines a spotlight on our own values, on our own integrity, and our ability to move in accordance with our values, right? Our belief system. Mm-hmm. Again, what this doesn't mean is perfection. This means, and often in leading, in teaching, and educating, and facilitating, you will see examples, right? I just had this conversation with a client where she was sharing with me, oh, we had this discussion in our group, and this really important thing came up, and I shared and I spoke about it and I taught about it. And then I realized, later, oh, I have work to do in this area. And so I want to normalize that, right? Leadership means if you are teaching, if you are in a leadership role, if you're facilitating, you're going to see opportunities for mastering the very things you believe and teach. And that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That means you're being held accountable, right? Pillar number 3, at a higher level. That means you have areas, like every human, for growth and refinement. So it's that awareness and that accountability in the process of leading by example, in the process of being like, oh yeah, so this is my perspective on it. This is what I believe. And also, I have areas for growth here as well. right? And that doesn't mean that you're not qualified. That doesn't mean you're an imposter. That actually means that you're accountable. So the second thing I recommend is knowing that you set the tone, right? And this is about clarity of expectation. So when you are holding a space for a lot of people, you have a responsibility to create the sort of the seen and unseen infrastructure that supports learning, connection, and growth in that space. So that means a clarity of boundaries, right? Here's how to use, and clarity of expectation. That's my dog.
It's fine.
Leading with imperfection. He has a lot of opinions about leadership as well, I can imagine.
I love it.
But that means that when you are clarifying expectations and boundaries in a space, you're showing people how it's okay to show up and how not. And it's really hard. It's like when you get something from IKEA, if you didn't have directions, that thing would never get put together, right? And so clarity of expectation and setting the tone for here's how we're going to work together. Here's how you're going to use this space. Here's how you can get the most out of this experience. Gives people a guideline, right? And a thread to follow in the space. And that allows people to relax, and it allows them to know how to show up, right? Without just the kind of like crickets, waiting for somebody else to go, not knowing, is it okay for me to ask questions here? What's me taking up too much space, right? Is it okay for me to not know the answer? All of these things. So we set expectations. The next thing, and we touched on this a little, is don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to adjust, to roll with the punches, because your job is to pay attention, right? Notice how people are interacting. Notice what's working and what's not. I'll give you a practical example of this. Yeah. I was running a launch course, and there's a lot of content. There's a lot of curriculum. And about 3 weeks in, I could tell that people were a little bit behind and feeling the pressure of that. And I was like, hey, would you guys like to extend this program by a week? And we'll do an implementation week next week. And I will host office hours. So you can come, you can work, you can get questions answered. And so you're not worried about finishing this module so you can get to that module. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, thank you.
You read the room. You essentially read the room and was like, okay, come on, let's get everyone back on track. You read the room.
Right. And it wasn't planned, but there is nothing worse than a rigid leader who's like, we have an agenda and this is what we're sticking to. And it's might not be working for people, but that's what I committed to. So that's how we're going to do these things, right?
Do you think it's a little bit easier when you have a smaller group to do something like that, like pivot? Because, you see the bigger groups which have, a couple hundred, maybe even thousands of people, and maybe that pivot isn't as easy to do you think? Or you just like, it's like laziness?
Yeah. So let's context this. Sometimes it depends on, there are a lot of different factors that play in, right? It depends on the pivot. And it also depends on maybe the format of your group program. If it's evergreen and it's running without you and it's automated, a pivot is a little bit more challenging, right? Because you're not having a direct interaction. You're maybe getting like feedback and surveys, right? So it's kind of later on, but you can use that information to adjust your curriculum or adjust your format of delivery. And I would actually argue that it's not more difficult with more people. It might be more difficult to gauge where everyone is at and get an accurate read, but this brings me to my fourth tip on this. It's really about transparency. Communication. So that means bringing people along with you and having the courage to have a conversation of, hey, I noticed this thing isn't working, or I noticed it could work better. And my commitment is to you, right? And to your learning and to your thriving and your success in this container. And so here's what I'm proposing we do about it. Who's on board, right?
I love that. I love what you just said there, the transparency of it all, because, sometimes group coaching leaders will kind of put that boundary up like, okay, so I'm here, you're there, we're going to go through it, I'm going to teach you, but they don't kind of let me know if, maybe something isn't working. Maybe they are getting a lot of emails about, this time doesn't work or whatever the case may be. And they don't let us know that because they want to make it a facade of everything's perfect, everything's beautiful. But to be transparent is beautiful. To have someone say, this is not working. I think double points to you if you say something in the curriculum's not working. Yeah. Double points to you, but saying this is not working, let's figure out how to make it better. Do you tell people they should like reach out for ideas, or are you saying that like they, how do you kind of be transparent but don't look like you like a schmuck, like you don't know what you're doing?
Yeah. So that's about having a plan, right? You're still in a leadership role. It's not your clients, and knowing your responsibility. It's not your client's responsibility to tweak the curriculum or the format of delivery. So you notice something. And I actually learned this when I was in corporate, when I was in like middle management. So when I knew something wasn't working, and I would bring it to upper management, if I didn't come with a proposed solution, nothing got done.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's deferring responsibility. And so as the leader in the space, you're coming to the space and saying, hey, I'm noticing this, and I think this will better serve us. Right?
And it's not necessarily about having the answer completely, like the right answer. Maybe that's the word I'm saying. So if you say, this is what I think it will better serve us, and it doesn't end up serving them, like you're like, well, I was throwing out an idea. Like, what do you do about that? Like, say, I think us working through this in this way would work. More videos or something, and everyone's like, nah, we don't want that. Like how do you kind of respond to that? Like people are like, that's not what we want.
Yeah, I will say, from just side note, from an adult learning perspective, often more content is not the solution. It's typically more content is not the solution, right? Everyone's like, let's just add more modules. Let's just create more work for people.
It never works for any group coaching experience. Creating more modules never works.
Yeah, and there's an amazing, she's more than a mama on Instagram. There's an amazing adult learning, Taylor Weaver, specialist that talks about this all the time as well. And I just crack up because I'm like, yes, piling more onto people is not the solution. Usually it's getting to the root of the problem. So, you want to listen to people when you propose something. And if people are saying, oh, no, not that, then being like, okay, I'm gonna take that feedback and I'm gonna come back with something else, right? In the meantime, let's stay here. Or in the meantime, why don't we, right? If everyone's feeling tired, have an implementation week.
So just slow it down. But I can see somebody saying, oh, well, okay, that didn't work, or I didn't get the right feedback I wanted. So, well, let me do this. Well, let me do this. Let me do, to me, that's not really a mark of a leader. I'm thinking you're all over the place.
No.
If you're kind of constantly going, well, let's do this.
Jumping around, saying, and again, so I something I want to bring in line with this is that people pleasing is the antithesis of leadership.
Ooh, quote that.
Yeah.
That's really good.
People pleasing is the antithesis of leadership. So this is not about making everyone happy. It's about when you are running a group program, what are your commitments and what is your responsibility to the space and to the people in it? Now, that doesn't mean getting people to like you. That means giving them an experience that effectively moves them toward the end goal or promise of your offer. So that's the lens I want you to think about that. And that's what keeps you in responsibility, not like jumping over here, adding more modules, tagging everyone on, giving everyone shout outs because you want them to like you. That's not serving people, right? You have a commitment to serving people. So staying in leadership means, okay, my commitment is to providing you, the best learning experience, the best coaching experience I can in this space. And, going in, you have an idea, I imagine, of how to do that to some extent. If you stay and watch all of the Fempreneur experience, you'll have a lot better idea of how to do that because there's so much amazing wisdom here. So subtle plug. But then like knowing within reason, what's in your capacity. So yeah, so don't be afraid to pivot. That does not mean you spend the entire time making up the program as you go along.
Ooh, okay. Well, okay. So Hannah, I will say this. So for those who want to do a group coaching experience, and there's a lot of people who teach beta. They teach beta programs. They teach, going out there and do it as you go along. What do you say to that experience? If you are somebody who wants to do a beta, like what makes a good beta group coaching? And when I say beta, I'm meaning that essentially you are kind of stepwise, like, okay, this is the next thing. You have a plan, but there's a bit of a I'm doing it on the fly, maybe not on the fly, but you're doing it a little bit on the fly when you do beta. What do you think about those experiences when it comes to group coaching? So
I'm a fan of planning, right? I'm not a fan of over planning, but you want to go in with a framework. So yes. I don't recommend doing beta based off no information. I don't recommend doing anything based off of no information. And often in a group program, you'll be taking something that you've already mastered to some extent and translating it from maybe one-to-one to one-to-many.
Gotcha.
So have an awareness, like you do need to come in with an understanding of your process and how that moves people to a result, not theoretically, right? Or not, yes. I know a bunch of stuff about this thing, so we're going to try a bunch of stuff, right? So, and I recommend in curriculum creation or process creation, reverse engineering. What is the end result? And where are my people starting at? And what are the stages that we need to move through to get there?
Okay.
So I still recommend having a framework. Beta is for you to test that framework, right? And test the effectiveness of it. But it isn't a space for you to create a plan as you go.
Gotcha.
So right?
Gotcha.
And that's where the responsibility comes in. So if I'm teaching a course on building wealth, we're not going to start with, for most, and I know that most of my people have very little financial literacy.
Right.
I'm not going to start with NFTs. I'm not going to start with investing. I'm not going to start with complex strategies for dominating the real estate market.
Right.
I am going to start with simple systems that help people, I'm going to start with budgeting. I'm going to start with debt. I'm going to start with creating an emergency fund, right? I'm going to start with these foundational pieces that will create stability and create relationship and clarity around money before we graduate into the bigger things. So you do need to have an understanding of where you're taking people and who those people are that you're taking there. And that might mean some market research. That might mean a little more planning, but I don't actually recommend, coming back to responsibility and accountability, I don't recommend beta as in selling something that you had an idea about before you have any idea what's in the course. Oh. Unless what you're doing is like some kind of psychic stream of consciousness.
Right.
And I don't recommend, and there are people who do that, but I think that's a little bit different than a program or a curriculum that's designed to move people to a place.
Yeah, no, I love that answer because, again, a lot of people talk beta, but you're saying essentially, let's have a framework. Let's have a plan in place. We are taking them somewhere. We have like a map. Oh, sorry. Yep. I did it over there on camera. We have a map where we're taking them someplace. So it's not that beta is not a good thing, but it's making sure that you have the process outlined. You may not have the modules ready and that sort of thing at the very start of it, but you have the process down pat and you're able to, if that's how you say that phrase, down pat, to make sure that you have a place for them to go. So I totally feel that as you're saying that, because I know beta has been something that's come up there. what happens, or, as we kind of shift gears a little bit, developing those skills. So, you've talked to us about, people who who pivot, people who show, transparency. How do we get there? Because as maybe a service provider, let's talk about me. As a service provider, I feel that I don't necessarily feel like I'm a leader, if you will. How do you, maybe it's more of a mindset thing, but how do you kind of get to where you feel like you can be transparent to people, or you feel like you can be, you can pivot? How do you get those skills, or how do you develop those skills that you're saying are necessary to lead a group coaching experience?
Yeah. So clarity of your values, really, really important, right? Self-awareness and clarity of values. So great leaders know what they're great at, but they also are very clear on what they're not.
Okay.
Right. So I have full awareness of the areas where my strengths do not exist. So those are often opportunities for me to either develop or delegate, right? Sometimes there's somebody better who can do the job. Sometimes that's an area for growth for me. And so I know where I've developed mastery. I know where I have work to do. And then clarity of values, right? This is what, and integrity means something different to every person. And I want to clarify that because it's such a commonly used word, but it's like, what does that mean? What integrity means to me might mean something different to someone else. And you have that experience sometimes in group coaching programs where you're like, oh my gosh, I would never do that thing. And I'm like, clearly my value system is different than maybe this person facilitating. So knowing what your value system is, and then what does that look like to live in, or to lead in, or to work in line with those values. And then again, I come back to the third pillar of accountability, right? Who's checking you other than you? Who do you have in your corner who will tell you the truth? Who will be like, actually, that was not great, but that's okay. We can do something about it. Those are gold, because there are a lot of people who just want to be nice. And that's not that helpful when you're in leadership. So I will tell you that, like, the best relationships in my life are the people who will tell me when it's not it.
When it's whack. Yeah.
People who will tell me, yes, and you can do better.
They challenge you. They challenge you to do better. Like, I dare you to do better than that. And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
Or just like, you can do better than that. I know you. And it's like, ouch, but it's also like, thank you. Because you're right. It might, and getting comfortable with feedback like that. And that doesn't mean everyone gets to weigh in, right? Because we don't need to take on advice. There's certain people we don't need to take in their advice and opinion, especially if they haven't done the thing that we're doing, especially if they're not someone whose opinion that we really respect anyway.
Yeah.
Most people don't get to weigh in, but the people who do, those people are gold. And having one or two or three people like that in your corner, whether it's a coach or a mentor, whether it's a colleague or, a sister, or a partner, having those people who get what you're doing, who really care about you and who are willing to be honest, those people keep you in check, and those people make you great.
That's the truth. That is the truth. I wanted to ask you a question about leadership as it relates to having other people on the team. And what I mean by that is that, you have a group coaching experience, and oftentimes as it gets bigger, you feel like maybe, it's a little bit more for you to handle. You bring on another coach, or you bring on someone else to help you with the coaching. So I want to ask you about that and bringing on coaches. But before we actually get to that question, I want to make sure that we're kind of coming to the change of the session. But before you answer, I want to make sure that everyone knows that Fempreneur Coach Connection Live is happening April 13th and 14th, and that you have your ticket. Make sure you get that fempreneuronline.com/event. If you're already in there, make sure that you get the Fempreneur Coach Connection Pass, because the pass actually gets you the replay. So you're going to see Hannah's, and you're actually going to watch it and kind of go, oh, that's what she meant by that. Because some things I'm just saying, when I am with Hannah, what happens is that I go back and listen. And I go, oh, okay, dang, I should ask that question. I've done that, listening to your, like, that was really deep. I got it, but I didn't get it. And so I listened to it again. So make sure that you go and sign up for the event and for the Coach Connection Pass. But yeah, let's get back to that question. You are a group coach. You maybe have, honestly, you don't even need to have that many people to bring on another somebody. I'll say that, because maybe 10 is your limit, but there's so many more people that you want to help. So you do increase it and you bring on somebody else. How do you maintain that level when you bring somebody else in? So they're actually considered a leader as well. How do we maintain that? How do we find somebody who's a leader? I don't know if I want to say like us, but how do we find somebody like that? What's your thoughts on that?
So the first thing I want you to know is that bringing on co-coaches is actually more responsibility, not less. So sometimes we think about adding team as like, oh, I lean back, I don't have to show up now. That couldn't be further from the case, because when that happens, we get into deep water, right? We get into trouble. It's not that it's more responsibility. It's just a different type of work, right?
Yes.
So that's the first thing, is like, oh, I am still the captain of this ship. Right.
Right.
I've got a first mate. I've got, I don't, nautical references.
It's okay, but like, let me stop that nautical thing. I get
on
it.
This journey that are supporting us getting to where we need to go. And I am still ultimately the visionary. I am still ultimately responsible for keeping everyone on board, right? I am still ultimately responsible for knowing how the way I show up impacts the collective. So that's the first thing, right? Because we can take actions that have a ripple effect. So for example, if we have a deadline, say my team and I are doing a big event, and we have a deadline and I'm not meeting my deadlines, that puts extra pressure on my team. Yes, right now, everyone else has to scramble and do things last minute because I didn't show up. So knowing that, right? Knowing that now I'm accountable to more people. I'm not less accountable, I'm more accountable. The second thing is not assuming, even when you bring team on, this can really get in people's way, is assuming that you are the best person for every job, and assuming that no one can do it as well as you can, right? And that you become like a very micromanager type team leader in like checking everyone, redoing everything. Lean back, right? Put the right people in the right places and then trust them to do their work. And often with clear communication and clear clarity of what we're creating, clarity of our deadlines, a clarity of structure, how we work together, who's responsible for what. Once that infrastructure is created, then you can lean back and allow people to show you what they've got. Because I guarantee the expert that you brought in for whatever role, your online business manager, whomever, even your co-coach, they're there because they have a certain level of expertise and mastery. So you got to give them breathing room. Yeah. Trusting people allows people the space to show up and shine.
The mark of a leader.
Always to your advantage, right?
Yeah.
Being a leader doesn't mean now yes, you are responsible, but like you are probably not the best for every single thing,
Shocking, right?
Okay.
Shocking. No, I mean, look, the fact that you said, I love that. The fact that you said it doesn't mean it's less work. I'm like, really? Oh no. But I never thought about it that way. I mean, it's actually, you're taking on a little bit more responsibility, putting those systems in place, and then letting your people shine. I think that's like the mark of a true leader, at least for me, where I'm not so once the process is in place and it's known by those who are doing the work, I can let go. And that is true leadership, as far as I'm concerned, when you have a team underneath you doing a program. So, oh my goodness, Hannah.
I have one last thing.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Pay people well. When people are well compensated for their time and for their work, the way they show up for you, right? You take care of people, they will take care of you. So invest in your people.
We got away from that. I don't know who was putting it out there, but we got away from it. We started kind of not putting anything on high horses, but we started to like, let's outsource and give people $2 an hour. I mean, we started, I know who started it, but I ain't gonna say it out loud. But it became like, let's give people the least amount so I can get the most amount so I can make the most. And so when you just said pay people, please pay people well, I don't care where they're from. I don't care where they're from. We need to not get in that culture of their cost of living is this, so I'm going to go a lot less than what, I would give somebody here. I don't know. That annoys me. I don't like that.
And that's where the responsibility comes in, right? Like, and I can give you an example. My very first hires in my business didn't work out because I was trying that strategy that whomever was teaching of like, find the cheapest help you can get. So not only was I not setting up my people to succeed because they were not compensated in a way that's sustainable, but I also didn't have the infrastructure for them to succeed in the role.
That's the thing.
Right?
Oh, that is the thing. That's so funny. Okay, now that you say that, it's funny because, again, when you kind of start out and when you kind of start needing more people on your team, you go for the cheapest, and you actually probably don't have anything prepared for them to succeed in whatever role they're in because you're going for the cheapest. Yeah. Like, you kind of have that, well, I'm new, I'm just going to have them do it. So I totally feel that, Hannah. So, okay, hold on. We got to wrap it up, but I still want you to stay so you can talk to Jocelyn a little bit. What do you have coming up, Hannah? And where can we follow you on social?
So I'm on Instagram is where I hang out the most. I'm at I am Hannah Koenig. Let's see, coming up right now, I'm trying to finish writing a chapter for a book I'm co-authoring. We will do Lead Well, which is a summit that I do in the fall. It's a wealth summit for leaders. So it's all about leaders being well-resourced. And this is our theme this year is financial prosperity. So we'll be talking everything from budgeting, talking money with your kids, how to manage it for your team, how to grow and build wealth. And we have a kick-ass lineup. You can actually go to, I think it's leadwellsummit.com and check out last year's lineup and get access.
Yeah, she got some people in there, y'all.
Yeah.
Just so amazing people there.
There are 25 different speakers from last year. World-renowned speakers, best-selling authors. We have professors, everybody. It's so fun. We'll do it again in the fall. But go follow me on Instagram at I am Hannah Koenig.
Yay. So Hannah, if you could just wait just a minute, I'm going to introduce you to Jocelyn. Okay. And we'll have a quick chat, all of us on together. So if you could just hold on 1 minute. This is where I do the producing thing and kind of get people where I need them to go. Okay. So we're switching gears just for a little bit. Is coming to the 1 p.m. Eastern time hour. We're talking content creation. We went from talking about being leaders and what it means to be a leader in this space. And it's so funny because I noticed during the session, and she's like talking about not being perfect, Hannah was talking about, and I noticed in the session, my stupid light is over there in the corner and you can see it. I'm sorry. And my hair is actually blocking the cute little This is being imperfect. I was so excited about this setup. And now I'm like, oh, my hair is blogging it. Whatever. We're here. You're getting the content and it's awesome content. So anyway, so you're not going to want to miss this next pre-party session with Jocelyn. We're going to reveal how to batch your content to save time and create bigger connection with your brand fam and future clients. Brand fam, I got that from Megan Dowd. She's going to be on Wednesday. I was talking about creating your offer, creating your actual group coaching package and offer. So I got that term from her, by the way. I'll plug her. But before we meet Jocelyn, I want to make sure that you can learn a little bit more about her.
Our next guest is the founder, award-winning content marketing strategist, dedicated tea drinker, and outdoor enthusiast of Connect Through Content. Her mission is to make it possible for visionary experts with powerful solutions to create the authority, visibility, and connections they need to support their next level of business growth and impact without burning out or stressing about the latest Instagram algorithm or iOS updates. Here to reveal exactly how to batch your content to save time and create a bigger connection with your brand fam and future clients. Please welcome to Fempreneur Coach Connection Live, Jocelyn Montemarano.
Yay, Jocelyn. Whoop, 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 you're here.
What an intro, Nicole. That was such a fun surprise.
Right? That's like my surprise all this week or so. Now, you know, this is a thing now. So now I'm like, uh-oh, we got to be good for everybody. But I'm excited. So excited that you're here, Jocelyn. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. This is such an incredible event and the lineup is like to a T. So I am really excited to be part of this and to, share my knowledge and expertise with everyone as well, too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to bring Hannah on just so, you know, I'd like to be like, hey, do y'all know each other? Like Hannah, Jocelyn, Hannah. There you go. Get to know each other.
Yeah, we connected over on Instagram already through this event. And I think that's kind of the power of events in our digital world right now is we get to meet everybody through people like you who are such powerful connectors for us.
Oh, thank you. Look, I like the everybody talking together and the fact that people are connecting outside this event. I'm like, yes, that's the whole point of this. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it almost gives it that live feel.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Like, I get to meet new cool humans, people in your world, and nerd out on your expertise, your wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So I actually want to bring Hannah into this because, you know, we're talking about content and content batching. Hannah, what's your experience with content batching? Do you do it, or is it something you're learning how to do, or, you know, what's your experience with that?
So when I'm going into a launch, I do, just because there are so many moving pieces. And when I'm going into like a big event, something like this, I typically outline, and I don't know if y'all do too much human design, but I'm a manifesting generator. So I'm actually the kind of person who, like, my best content is stuff I create on the fly in terms of actually writing it out. So I have a little bit of that live relationship with my content. Like if you see something that I post or that I've written, it's likely that I wrote that within, the last couple of hours and put it out. That's just my style. But for bigger events, I always outline, because for an event, for promotional work, you're moving people through, you're taking people on a journey. Mm-hmm. So I have different messages that I bullet, and I plan for different phases of a launch or different phases of a promotional journey. And then I will go and create them more quickly. And then obviously for Lead Well, we batch content, we batch emails, because there's just no way I could create all that on the fly without pulling out my hair.
Right. I mean, Jocelyn, I'm sure that you've had people kind of talking about batching and the best way to batch, especially for an event. Do you have any advice for me and for Hannah? Because, yes, I do this, but hey, I could always do more, especially when we talk about batching.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hannah just hit the nail on the head when she said with an event, especially, and I, teach this with just content in general, when you're looking at your quarter's worth of content, is with the event, you are going through a very specific journey with people. So it's very important to look at the pieces from the very beginning, like what is the very first event that they are seeing and how is that then evolving and building off one another until the end of the event. So planning that, obviously, to Hannah's point, is super important because you want to make sure that you've vetted those different ideas and that you're evaluating, okay, what does this journey actually look like? Is this content building upon itself? Or is the audience getting each, piece step by step? So yeah, she nailed it right there with mapping it out in that way. So that is so great. And that's also just how I approach quarterly content as well, because for most entrepreneurs, we might have like a quarterly based promotion, or if you have multiple offers, you might be promoting one thing for one quarter and one thing for another quarter. So your content needs to obviously shift and all work together towards that same goal.
Awesome. Okay, look, I know, Hannah, you gotta go. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for our pre-party session. You guys, if you want to watch the replay of this, make sure you go over and get a ticket to Fempreneur Coach Connection live. Hannah will be in there talking. Hannah, you have your own booth in case you didn't know that inside, where we're going to be putting all the goodies that Hannah has provided for our attendees. And you could ask questions for her inside the event. So thank you so much, Hannah, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's so fun. I can't wait to watch all of the other lives. I can't wait to watch all of the other podcast episodes. What you put together is amazing.
Thank you. And remember that Hannah's will be premiering Monday. Fempreneur Coach Connection is the name of the podcast. Our episode will be there. Go on there, do whatever you do, like it, or, I guess it's not social. You're supposed to give reviews. Let us know what you think on Instagram. Tell Hannah, hey, I listened to your episode. It's awesome. Nicole was right. You really, I need to listen to it a couple times because there's so many different gems in that episode. So thank you so much for being a part of that, Hannah.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. So Jocelyn,
yes.
I know we're talking about content. We're talking about batching. We're talking about how to make this work, because when it comes to content, people, I think, get nervous, anxious. It's a lot, they kind of have those general feelings. And the word batching, it's like, is that like a negative word lately? I don't know. I feel like some people are like, it takes forever. There's but it's come into being kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. It's become scary. Both of those words, content and batching, has become scary words recently. Can you tell us anything about that? And why? Let's make it easier so we're not so scared about those two words first.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point, because oftentimes whenever, I primarily support people with building and launching their video podcast. Yeah. And the number one thing that comes up for people is this fear of production of, when I go to create a podcast, I want to make sure that I'm going to be really consistent with it, that I am going to have my weekly episodes. I don't want to commit to something that, I'm not ready for and that falls through the cracks or things like that. So I totally get that fear of production, because you want to make sure that you are consistent and it doesn't become, something that adds a million things to your plate. And I think where I've seen firsthand with my clients where people have gotten really caught up in the content is when they get into the content treadmill. And oftentimes that happens when they're creating content that, number one, often is short form content that requires them to pump out a lot. So they're used to like Instagram content and creating for that, right? So they constantly need to create more Instagram content in order to keep fueling their Instagram.
To chug the algorithm,
yes.
The A word.
Yeah, the big scary A word.
The A word, let's not say that out loud, because they may listen to the transcript of this and be like, oh,
What?
let's not.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, on Instagram, the algorithm, favors things for 24 to maybe, if it's like super viral, 72 hours, right? So you constantly need to be putting things out there. And that's where a lot of people start, is of course on Instagram or LinkedIn or any of these social channels that have the short form content where the life cycle is a lot shorter. So in their mind, they're like, I need to create, if let's just say I post one Instagram post every single day of the month, that's a lot, but 30 posts. And let's say that's generating 20 leads a month for me to my applications or for my group program, right? Mm-hmm. So the mindset then becomes, oh, if I want to double that, I need to post twice as much. And it gets very scary of like, oh, but that already takes me so long. So then there's this whole perception of content takes a long time and I need to create so much of it and, do so much in order to produce content.
Now that you just said that, I'm like, that makes perfect sense why the word content is becoming a dirty word, because we're having to pump so much daggone content out for the Instagram A, for the Facebook A, for the LinkedIn, even the LinkedIn A, YouTube A, whatever the case may be. It feels like we're just, they want more. It's like they want more, like a kid who just is so hungry all day. They just want more. And we have to produce more and more and more. Mm-hmm. So I can definitely see, and that was a perfect explanation for why that word has become ugly. But tell us why it's beautiful.
I was hoping you would give me that segue.
Because I'm like, okay.
So, what I really focus on is the search side of content and moving people who they've gotten some results on Instagram. They have some consistent sales and leads and traffic from Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever it might be, but they're realizing that strategy isn't sustainable for them long term. So we move them into a search-based format. And for me, I'm going all in on the recommendation of video podcasts because of its potential and how much leverage you can really pull out of creating just that content alone. So,
okay, hold on, because this is going in a way that I didn't think it was going to go in. I knew that you produce video podcasts, like that was your thing. So I already knew that, but I didn't think that was going to be your answer to that. Like okay. I like it, but I'm not gonna lie. The video podcast route is a scary word to me too.
Which is funny because you're doing it.
I did it. Yeah. And that's funny. I did a video podcast technically. But okay.
Yeah, no, but so here's what I like about it. And here's like what I have seen working for my clients is when you have a format like video and you're optimizing that a little bit for SEO, you're able to take that video, use it on YouTube, tap into YouTube SEO, use it as a podcast, tap into podcast SEO, get the transcript and have an article version. So now you have Google SEO. So right off the bat, one format, you are tapping into 3 different search channels. And if somebody here listening isn't familiar with the difference between search and social content, search content is going to give you recurring traffic. So once you start ranking for a keyword, you're going to get that traffic over and over again. So I have a client, my very first client who I worked with 8 years ago, is still getting traffic, leads, and sales from blogs I wrote like straight out of college. Yeah. So it's amazing because they made that investment in that content and now it's just working for them. So what then happens is this kind of concept of what I call raising your baselines. Mm-hmm. So right now, again, using the Instagram example, if you get, let's just say 100 people to your website every month from your Instagram traffic, that's kind of your baseline. Okay, my Instagram posts and stories, what I do is getting 100, people to my site.
Yeah.
You can't really raise that unless you continue to create more and more content. Whereas with search content, if you get one piece of content that's getting 100 people to your site, okay, there's your baseline. If you now have a second piece of content that's getting 50 people to your site, you now have a baseline of 150 people every month. Now what you're doing on Instagram is adding on top of that. and then so on and so forth. So you're getting this like gradual growth of traffic, leads, and sales, and you're not hitting that like same plateau. And you're really starting to see the results from content pay off, and then it becomes more exciting.
But you're not necessarily telling us, okay, cut off the social part, cut off that aspect. You're telling us that instead of maybe focusing all our time on social, we should be focusing more on the search engines. Is that what you're saying? Or, what are you saying? How should we shift in that content making way?
Yeah, I love that question. So my recommendation is, you lead. The entrepreneur themselves is leading with that core content. They are spending their time on sharing their expertise in this video podcasting format. And then they are tapping into their team to repurpose that, or tapping into you, for example, Nicole, with your repurposing packages that you offer. To be able to create that social content so that they don't have to create that all from scratch. It's coming from their authoritative content. It makes it easier for the team that you have supporting you, whether that's your in-house team or an outsourced team like Fempreneur. And it makes it a lot better because you're creating this really thought out content that, is giving you the space to share your expertise and your knowledge, and your team is pulling out all those snippets from it. So it makes it so much more streamlined, and it allows the entrepreneur to get to the point where, they only actually have to go create that video content once per quarter, and then the rest is hands off. And their choice can be, either I don't want to do social ever again, or, for most of us, we do like social. It's just, we don't want to be part of the social rat race, right? So it's like, okay, I still want to have a presence there. I still want to be able to engage in DMs there or sell in DMs. So I want to have content there, but I don't necessarily want to be looking at what's trending today and, having to create a piece of content today.
Oh my goodness. When I tell you that I think what you just said has freed some people. I'm telling you, I think what you said has just freed some people, because we're taught to do content in the sense of put it on the algorithm, create the things to put it in the algorithm, not necessarily to continually be seen. So, if I create some sort of caption on Instagram, we're just talking about Instagram. But if I create a caption on Instagram, I probably thought about it, did bullet points. Like there was a whole thought of creating some sort of content behind it. At least that's how I used to do it. That's for sure. But you're saying let's shift over into just creating the content. Just create the content. Yes, it will eventually come on social as well, but we're not creating content just for a social media platform. We're creating content to be searchable. And would you say searchable first and foremost, and then trendy or on social, or, it just seems so up in the air. What should I do first?
I recommend search first, because that's ultimately what's going to give you an ROI. That's, what's going to have that recurring traffic, lead, sales come in, so that you don't always have to be, looking for that next strategy, looking for that next sale. And then I like to think about like that trendy content, like reels or shorts, and what's actually trending in real time is just like the sprinkles on top of the sundae. It's just like something fun that you get to do if you like that and you like showing up in that way and you have fun doing it, rather than that pressure of like, oh my God, like
I have to create 10 a week, and oh my goodness. But I love that you said that, because we do have Instagram expert coming in on day one, Natasha Samuel. If you don't know her, get to know her. She's awesome on Instagram and how to do Instagram right, because she's having fun. Like when you see her stuff, you're like, oh, that was so nice. That was so awesome. She teaches Instagram, so obviously she's going to be heavily on there, but she is doing exactly what you're telling right now. She has a podcast. I think it's a video podcast. I'm not sure if she's specifically making YouTube videos and making a podcast, but I know she has a YouTube now. And so she is getting seen. And that's why you'll see like Instagrammers and Facebookers and stuff. They'll be on other places, but they'll be on search engines. so they can be seen over and over and over again. So what you're saying makes sense, Jocelyn. Amen. All the things. It's funny because we were going down a rabbit hole and I was like, daggone it. I had question number 1 and I haven't even asked it.
That's great. We're inspired. That's the best place to be chatting
really, from. That was really good. And we're going to get more into how we can leverage our content for group coaching. You can talk to me more about the video podcasting, even though I already do it. But I don't really consider myself a video podcaster. But my first question, actually, and I'm looking off to my computer. If you see me looking, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. First question was, I know that in the podcast, and you guys are, just so you know, Jocelyn will be one of our mini-sodes in Fempreneur Coach Connection, the podcast. Subscribe. But in that particular podcast episode, you talked about the 5 specific types of content that you need to be creating to generate more sales. Do you remember those 5?
I do.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Because I was like, let me go back in my archives. So can you tell us those 5 specific types of content? Because I think that if we can start there, like what content should we be creating? Then we can start talking more about batching and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, you want to start your whole content creation process with the right topics and the right strategy, because otherwise, like Nicole said, it doesn't really matter how good at batching you are if you're creating the wrong content. So yeah, when I think about, what topic, what ideas do you need to be touching on in your content in order to move somebody from, just discovering you for the first time, whether they come in through Instagram or LinkedIn or your blog or your video, wherever they come in through, to actually being ready to buy from you? What are the steps that they need to go through? And hopefully you're familiar with the purchasing journey and that, levels of awareness, because that really influenced this a lot. But essentially it's someone going from problem unaware, where, they're experiencing symptoms of something, but they don't yet know, what's the root cause of that? What do I need to fix it? And then all the way through solution aware, where they're like, okay, I know what the solution is. I know who I want to work with. I'm ready to buy. So the first type of content that you want to be thinking about is...
Well, hold on, Jocelyn, before you get there. Desola Davis, I don't know if you know her.
Yeah.
She's going to be talking about the customer journey.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
Thursday. I just want to insert that there. We're going to have a fireside chat with Desola. She's a wealth of knowledge, if you've ever heard her speak about that journey and how to get people from place to place to place. She's going to be talking about that as it relates to group coaching on Thursday.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome. So you go.
If you're not familiar with that, definitely check that out, because you'll be getting like a whole bunch of content ideas from that, in addition to obviously what she's going to be guiding you through and making sure your program and marketing is all aligned to that. So the first type of content you really want to think about is that pain point and problem content that's going to help people understand more about their problem in that self-discovery phase. So this is, for example, I might have a piece of content that is like why your content isn't converting, because right now maybe somebody is creating a video and they're putting it out there and they're not getting any leads and sales for it, but they don't know why yet. They're experiencing the symptom of, I'm not getting the results that I want, but I don't know why. So that content is really going to help them understand, what they're missing or what's going wrong, and really understanding their problem so that they can then be open to, okay, now I get what the root cause of my issue is. What's the next step? Let's find a solution for that issue. But if you don't know kind of that root cause of what's causing your problems, you can't begin to evaluate solutions yet, because you just don't know. So that's the first type of content. Then the second type of content is your framework or your approach-based content. So what's really important is obviously making sure that the buyers that you have or your prospects are really aligned with your methodology of how you choose to approach that specific problem and how you help them reach the specific goal or result that they're after. Because, the beauty of coaching is that we all have different skill sets. We all came into the marketplace being like, oh, this didn't work for me. And, I decided to do it this way. And that could be for a slew of different reasons. So being able to have content that speaks to your method and how your method is different, so that it can call in more of the right people and repel the people that aren't a good fit, is going to help make sure that that prospect is super aligned. And they're like, oh, I love the way that Nicole does events. They are incredible, right? They're super narrow on one topic rather than being like super broad. So I want to work with Nicole when I'm, creating my event because I love her method.
I'm going to say this also, as you're thinking about, or as you're developing your group coaching programs this year, writing down your process, always having, what is your process? What gets you results? Writing down that process, because that is exactly what Jocelyn's talking about right there. That content is going to come from your framework. You're like, well, okay, I just say my framework and that's one piece of content. You're literally, you can dissect your process down 11,000 times into different pieces of content, because the process is the process. But if you have a 5-step process, I can literally do a piece of content on every single step. I can do a content on what tools I use for every single step. I can use, here's affiliate links. There's so many different things I can now create based on a process that I was like, well, it's not that hard, but people don't know your process, right? It must be hard, or I wouldn't say hard, but it must be not just like, well, duh. It's not a duh process because they didn't do it and got results like you did. So I would say for Jocelyn, write down your process. That becomes a really key pillar content piece for you, as I talk about in repurposing. But okay, Jocelyn, number 3.
No, you nailed it. That was great. And so number 3 is belief-based content. So this type of content is going to either help somebody build up new beliefs that they need in order to work with you, or break down old beliefs that aren't supportive for them anymore. So, we kicked off this whole chat talking about content and how it's become kind of like this dirty word, of a little bit scary, of like, oh my gosh, there's, I don't know if I'm ready to create video in my business because there's so much that comes with that. I'm really nervous about it. Right. So my content, belief-based, I'm going to make sure that they understand that actually when you lead with video, you don't have to create all of this Instagram content anymore. So that's going to get off your plate. When you lead with video, you don't have to write, your emails yourself anymore. You don't have to write your blog posts yourself anymore. All of that can be outsourced to a team member because your expertise is communicated in this video. And all you need to do is show up on video and chat through a couple points and you're done. Yeah. So that belief-based content is, we're all going to have things that come up when we're evaluating to work with somebody, especially in the form of a group coaching program, because they tend to be a high ticket investment. And we are looking for somebody that's really going to, hold our hand and support us with a pretty big goal. So, we want to make sure that, we're addressing those beliefs that are either coming up and not supporting them, or building up some, new beliefs that they might need as well, like that it is possible for them to get specific results. That's really important content to create. And then the 4th one is transformation. So this kind of piggybacks off of what I just shared about, building up beliefs, but it's really important that your prospects can actually visualize themselves getting the results. I think we kind of have all experienced this ourselves, and we've all faced it as an objection in our business when selling whatever it is that we're selling. But every single person thinks that they're going to be the only one that the method, the framework, the program doesn't work for. They we all have this fear that
I'll prove. Yeah.
Everybody else, can do it, but I'm different and I'm the one person that's not going to be able to.
And it's not going to work for my niche. That's always the thing.
Yes. The niche. So it's really important to have this transformation content, which is things like your case studies and even just client wins in, your smaller format content. But that transformation where you're showing literally where somebody started and where they ended up, so somebody else can see them in their journey. So, if you coach a lot of moms, it's going to be really important that you show that there, are moms going through this program and able to do it despite having a crazy schedule and despite having, kids yelling in the background of their coaching calls and things like that, right? You need to make that possible for them. If you help somebody start a business when they're currently at a 9-to-5, you need to show, these weren't people who had already had a client or two and left their 9-to-5. You need to show that, hey, look at all these clients that did this on the side with like 3 hours a week. That's very manageable. I make it very manageable. You really need to show that so they can believe it and see themselves in their clients and be like, okay, this person is so similar to me. I can see it working for myself. So the more transformational content, obviously, the better. And I think one piece of advice here, a lot of people get caught up in, oh, well, that person didn't get the biggest result, so I'm not going to share it. It doesn't have to be like this big, only your best clients get, a case study video. Show everybody that has gotten a result, because for somebody that first, if you're a business coach, that first $1,000 is a big deal to somebody.
Huge. Yeah.
We think like, oh, it's way better to show like this person did a six figure.
Yeah. That's what they did, 6 figure. Yeah. Or they got, 10,000 leads on this. Yeah. I would definitely agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
And, and as you're writing this transformation content, I mean, are you including that particular person? Are you doing examples? Are you doing screenshots in that content? Like, what are you putting in that transformation content piece?
Yeah, usually I would recommend like a client interview.
Okay.
Most of the time I would say people are when you've helped them in such a deep way, they're very open to hopping on, a video chat with you.
Especially in a video podcast. If you're creating content and it's for a video podcast and you say, hey, be on my video podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
They have no problem with it.
Yeah. So most of the time that's going to work is, people would love to support you because you supported them,
Yes.
reciprocity. And
I know what you're saying.
There are some niches where people may not want to do that for whatever reason. There's things related to health issues or, therapy, things like that. So if you're in one of those niches, you might just need to pivot a little bit how you're doing that. And maybe you're going on video with them to interview them to get the information, but you're not publishing that video anywhere. You're transcribing it into a written case study. And you might have to, just say like this client as opposed to their name. So you might have to get a little creative if you're in one of those niches, but
Gotcha.
It is possible. And also if you're in a niche that isn't a business niche, don't think that because you don't have a result that's like, she got
Made
10K
money.
in 30 days, there are so many great transformations. Actually, I don't even think right now I have a single client in the B2B niche. So I have 2 coming up booked, but all my past clients, all their case studies are all B2C. So they're all more abstract, like a dietitian, therapist, healers. So they're all using case studies. Don't think because you don't have like numbers or like data points that are so tangible that you can't have that.
That's great advice right there. What is your 5th? Did we get to 5?
Yes,
I don't think we did.
5th, last one. So the last one is promotional content, because people do not promote actually what they do enough, especially when it comes to longer form content like video, podcast episodes. They don't just dedicate an episode. And I get it. It's not going to be the most popular episode when you're just promoting yourself.
I didn't even think people did. Okay, so you're saying get out of just because I know like commercials and things like that where you just start a little like flip it about my name is, hey, I do it. My name is Wilma. You're literally saying create an entire podcast, a video podcast of just what you do.
Yeah. So
who knew?
Christine, who runs Publicity by Christina,
yes, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, she did a great episode that I thought was just like perfect. Again, it doesn't need to be like every episode is promotional, but she did an episode on why she helps you get booked out on podcasts, and one of her main offers is guarantees that you'll get at least 12 bookings when you sign up with her.
Yeah.
So that's like a huge value proposition. And she did a whole episode on why she guarantees bookings and why that's controversial in the PR industry.
It is controversial.
And I was like, this is the perfect promotional episode because it's really honing in on such a value point for her and her skill set and her confidence as an entrepreneur. And for those people who are on the cusp of like, oh, should I sign up? Should I work with her? they're going to listen to that episode. It's probably not going to be everybody because it's not a how-to. It's,
Right.
not,
Not
a
giving you the
learning
DIY
episode.
stuff. Yeah.
But it's going to push those people who are like, oh, wait, I didn't even realize that was part of her thing. Let me listen to that. And that's going to move people. So don't be afraid to sprinkle in some promotional things in there.
I absolutely love that particular piece of content. Like you even telling me to do that because, lots of times I'll create, the posts on Instagram, and those are never the posts that do well at all. They're just like, they sit there. You're like, well, dang on it. Like, but you're literally telling me creating content, not just for Instagram, but creating content, period, will get me on the search engines for the thing. So that is controversial content, but it's needed, I think. I think it's a little controversial actually to do that content because people are like, oh, don't sell like that. Like, just put a little call to action at the end of your content. But you're saying, nope, be like, this is what I do. And this is why you should do this with me. And I like that transparency. I absolutely love that. Okay, so we're going to talk about batching and how this goes with group coaching programs. So say, my name is Nicole. I am creating a group coaching program this year. How can content creation and batching work for me to create that program or to start enrolling people for that program? What can I start doing now?
Yeah. So you can, of course, batch, a lot of group coaching programs have the actual, like a course component with that. So you can totally batch all of your course content. You probably need to get it live.
To get it all out there, yeah, for sure.
So that's obviously one way that you can use batching right off the bat, is just to get your program out there. So really being detailed about, okay, what is every single lesson, and mapping out your calendar of, okay, here's, the days that I'm going to outline my actual lesson content. Here's the days I'm going to sit down and actually record my lesson content. And then, if you have an editor or a team that you might be passing it off, they can, handle the thumbnails and editing it or anything else that needs to get done to put that into your group program software.
And, maybe I should have asked this question first, like, what do you mean by batching? Because I guess and most people said it's, doing a bunch of stuff on one day and that's all you do that day. What does batching mean to you when you're talking about you want to batch something?
Yes, that's a great question. So batching to me is typically, sitting down and doing one type of task for a period of time. That way you're not task switching. You can just get into that zone, by their second or third piece, you're really into it. It's flowing a lot easier. You're thinking about the same thing. So it is just kind of flowing out and you're getting into that like speed and ease portion. It's kind of like when you're running and like the first mile is the hardest and then you're in your flow in like 2 and 3. I'm not a runner, but back in high school,
that's what that means. Yeah,
back in high school, that's how it was.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it is. Now, I will caveat that by saying we are all so different and there's different things to take into consideration. Like, people who have, who are neurodivergent and work in different ways. So I do offer like some recommendations of how you can make batching work for you. So,
go ahead. Tell us. I'm sure we have attendees that they're thinking, I'd love to batch. I'd love to be able to do it, but I can't sit down, I can sit down for that long, but at some point I'm just like, and it does become fun. It's not that you want to make batching sexy. Sometimes it's just not sexy when you're in the, like, just doing it. But tell us how we can do it and it work for us.
Yeah. So obviously you need to know your brain and your energy levels. That's kind of what I have gathered are the two most important components, because again, some people also have illnesses like chronic illnesses or autoimmune disease or things like that really impact their energy levels, or they're like a mom and they're like, I'm good, until noon. And then my kid's home from preschool and it's all, a wreck after that.
No,
so I really look at, your energy levels and your brain too. So there's a couple different ways. I would say the most popular way my clients batch their content is doing 3 months of content at a time. And that means they'll sit down and have a full day start to finish where they outline their content. And then when they go to record their content, they will do it back to back to back.
Yeah.
So that it's, 1 to 2 days, everything's recorded, done, and they don't have to think about it again. That's probably the most popular because then the rest of the quarter, they don't have to think about it.
Yeah. And those are the days normally when I do something like that, it's because like I got my makeup on, I got my wig on, and I'm good. Like, you know what I mean? Because you're not going to see me in front of the camera if those two things aren't done.
Yeah.
So to have a batching day where like, it's like, and I've told Carly, she's on my team, I was like, look, you're not getting a reel out of me. I'm not doing it today.
I'm not doing that. I'm the same way. Like,
the hair ain't on. So you better get a reel out of me today. In this pre-party session, you need to get a reel out of me right now. So, Carly, I'll be doing one. Just give me a second. I'll be doing one at some point during this interview because that, at least for me, that's super important. So batch means I have a face and a wig on. That's a batch to me.
Yeah, and I mean it sounds like silly for those things, but it is important because the reality is we work from home, and the reality also of this audience here at this event, group coaching people, is we want to have some freedom and flexibility. Yes. So, I'm moving to Colorado. We're planning on snowboarding, in the afternoons. So like, I'm not waking up and doing my hair and face and makeup every single day and being able to get on video like that.
And some people can. And that's the beauty of it, of batching can be what you want it to be.
Exactly.
I think, it doesn't have to be, let me sit here, for hours on end. It could be, in a routine every morning for this amount of 30 minutes, I can batch something, but it's what it is you want it to be.
Yeah. So the second option, if that, if you're the type of person where it's like sitting down to batch, 12 pieces of content for the whole quarter, outlining that and recording that sounds exhausting to you rather than like, oh yes, that would free me up so much. The other option that works really well for people is starting with their very first batch of content being a big batch. So either, 2 months or 3 months of content, maybe you do it across a couple more days, so it's not quite as quick. And then from there, once you have that initial batch of content done, then going on a rolling basis where every month you do, just a month's worth of content. But because you did a big batch up front, you're now ahead. So you're never having to worry about like, it's April right now, I need to create May's content. You would be creating May's content in March or even February. That way, if you need to take time off, if you get sick, if something comes up, you have that flexibility and that wiggle room, and you're not falling behind and trying to create content the month of.
That makes sense. I feel like that would be a great option for a lot of people to kind of get that jump start and then kind of just keep it going, but less content for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any more for us as far as just kind of doing the batching?
Yeah. The only other tip I would say too is figuring out, are you the type of person that can sit down and do things back to back? Or would you prefer to like block off time for, instead of doing it all on one day, doing it spaced out? So maybe, I work really well doing it kind of spaced out, where maybe I create content from 9 to noon and I'm doing like smaller batches there for a whole week instead of just doing like, all day Thursday. So you can figure that piece out too. Again, working with your energy levels, your schedule, and then like your brain. Are you good or is it turning to jello?
Yeah.
Again, some people get right into that flow. And then some people, it's like, I've put so much into these, first couple pieces, I can't, now I'm getting worse. So just monitoring that. And you can, I recommend using like a time tracking app and you can start figuring that out. And if you're saying, oh, my content's getting faster as the day goes on, great. Or it's like, no, my content's slowing down and I'm getting a little,
at a certain point every day, it's nap time. My husband knows it's nap time, and we don't have any, well, we do have I have a stepdaughter, but it's nap time for the adults at a certain point. It's a nap time for the dog too, and the cat. So, so I totally feel that, at some points I'm like, ooh, maybe for like only an hour. And then I'm like, okay, I'm hungry. It's lunchtime. And then, that kind of thing goes. Okay. So I wanted to get into We talked about the type of content, which was super helpful. So if you don't know what type of content you should be creating, go back, rewind, watch a replay of this one. These are the 5 types you should be doing. You're creating a group coaching program this year. You know what type of content you need to be creating in order to start feeding that search engine and getting people constantly coming back to you and getting leads. What we talked about, batching, and what that means to batch, that you guys have got to figure out, how your brain works, whether or not you want to do big chunks. Do you want to do 1 hour? Like what type of way do you want to batch? It means whatever it means to you. I want to get into maybe the technical stuff, because batching in itself sometimes is like, like it becomes technical, AKA technology. So what tools, software, things do you use in your batching routine? You already talked about the timer.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other things that you use that are super easy that people can do to not only create the content, but also to then spread the content around on social, on search engines? What sort of software and tools we should be using?
Yeah. So obviously it starts with, where are you recording your content? So I love riverside.fm. Okay. They have an awesome recording platform that you can bring on guests. And I also like it because you have the option to live stream as you're recording. So I know, Nicole, you did that with a lot of the episodes you recorded for your upcoming podcast. You live streamed them as well, right?
Yeah, that was the only way I was going to do it. I was because I was just, I also wanted to kind of feed the A. I wanted to feed the A a little bit, like, hey, and start getting people looking at the content. So yeah, I did do that.
Yeah. So Riverside FM is great for that because it allows you to record video content. You can pull out, all of that. You can have guests come on and you can live stream it. So it's really typically my top recommendation for people because of how robust it is and how great it is, especially with recording guests, because I always like making sure that the guests have a great experience as well. So they come back and they refer great people to be on your podcast. And then, yes, like I already mentioned, time tracking is huge for batching, because then you understand after your first batch, okay, here's actually how long it took me and what I need to, build into my workflow and into my calendars. I also am obsessed with Airtable. I build my clients like a whole content command center in there. And really what that is for is so that throughout the quarter, when they're not creating content, they are gathering inspiration. That's kind of what I encourage my clients to do, is between their batches, they're gathering all of the inspiration and just letting themselves explore the topics that interest them, consume content that inspires them, lights up those ideas. So in their Airtable, whenever they see that, whether it's like an Instagram post, an article they read on Medium, whatever it might be, an email from somebody else, like anything that just sparks inspiration, they drop that into their Airtable. That way, when they go to select their topics, they already have this like giant inspirational list, and they're not just like starting from scratch and like, I don't know what to write about,
Well, let me also say something about that. And because you said like people draw inspiration, when you find things that inspire you, that doesn't mean that you have to create a piece of content right then and there about it. And I think that's the difference, because the difference in creating content for the search engine first, then creating content for this, the social. Maybe I should say the S word. I think that's the difference, because when we get inspiration for social, we're like, okay, we got to create it now and we got to put it on there now, and because it's got to be trendy and we got to make sure it's up there right now. But having an inspiration board that says, this is my inspiration, it's going to be a long-lasting piece of content. Yeah. I don't have to create it right this second. I can wait to create this particular piece of content because it's going to be searchable forever. I don't need to do it right this second. So I think that's a little bit of a difference. So I just wanted to say that one.
Yeah, no, it's great. And to that point too, it helps you make better content, because if like I found, just to give an example of what this looks like, I found like I ran into 3 different posts that were talking about whether or not you should create content when you're not inspired. And I was like, this is really interesting. The topic of inspiration and content. And, on one hand, it's the discipline of content creation. You got to create when you're not inspired. You're not always going to be inspired, versus like, how valuable is something if you're putting it out there? If you're not inspired by it, why would anybody else be inspired? So it was
somebody just wrote that, didn't they? Because I heard that piece of content recently came out. Because I just heard somebody talking about inspiration. I'm not gonna say who, because I actually don't remember who did it. But I definitely
it's a
saw
hot
that
debate right now. It's like, do you
is that
do
a
it
debate?
or not?
That's a debate right now.
Yeah, that the two sides of like, don't publish content when you're not inspired because it's not valuable or worth adding to the conversation.
And people say that about podcasts too, right?
Yeah.
So when you are physically, mentally exhausted from podcasting and that sort of thing, you take a break. And that's controversial in itself. It's like, what do you mean take a break? Or people say seasons, I have a season, but I literally have like 30 some episodes. So I'm good for like 4 months. I'm good for 4 months. But yeah, I batched it all in January, which is like insane because I was off all January. But anyway, so any other tools, because I know people are going to kind of go, well, I really want to talk about stuff to go onto social. That's a sexy thing, batching content for social. Are there any software tools, tricks that you know of that we can make batching onto social? We're just going to give it to the people, because I know they're going to ask. They're going to ask.
Yes. Yeah. So have you heard of Canva? Everybody's favorite. It's honestly the simple, like, I'm a big fan of just like keeping it simple and easy. And like, I don't believe you need to like have a video editor and like all these crazy, video editing things and flashiness. Canva, you can create graphics in there and you can create video clips in there. And they have
you saw your opening intro, boom, Canva.
Yes.
But it was funny because that's my first time actually putting together something like that. So it became like, oh no, like, I don't know if I know the technology, but Canva is making it so easy that it's just like, come on, like, do, you're done. It may take a little bit of time. And initially I was like, okay, what am I doing? But once I did one or two, I think probably once I finished yours, and I was like, pop.
Yeah. It becomes, they have like, Canva also has like a little video school to teach you how to like actually cut up video and stuff in there. But they have the templates for, reels, so that you can take a 30-second snippet of a video you record and then like have a fun little animation that says, follow, subscribe, get the lead magnet, whatever you want it to be. So it's really easy in there. If you have a VA, give them the task of exploring what that looks like and, learning that, because it's, not a very, it's like what, $9 a month for Canva Pro.
I feel like they're going to up that, because it's literally becoming everything. It's scheduling now. Like when I saw their schedule, I was like, oh, they're about to put everybody. Everybody is doing all their content creation there. And the thought that now we can schedule from there too, like we got some problems. But yeah, Canva Pro, if you don't have it, you need to get it, especially when it comes to batching.
Yes.
Going on social, whatever the case may be, it's a good place to go. I wanted to talk a little bit briefly, because we're coming up to the 2:00 hour, at least on the Eastern time. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of like the roadmap. So if I'm somebody who is creating a group coaching this program, what are, again, the first things I should be doing? I know that you have your content. You're like, okay, I got content, that sort of thing. But how can maybe the question is, how can I start a video podcast? What does that look like? And how will that help me enroll clients? Okay, so that's the question. Before you answer it though, I want to make sure that everybody has a ticket to Fempreneur Coach Connection Live. That is the event happening April 13th and 14th. We have awesome sessions, you guys, awesome sessions. Everything from creating an authentic community for your group coaching program with Sherry Starr and Jesse Cox. They are the ones who are amazing with their community and how they interact with their community. They're very authentic, and I absolutely love them, and they're friends of the show. And also their episode on the podcast is featuring Monday, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, setting up your website. So when you are doing a group coaching experience, you want to set up your website. What does that look like? Erin or Lila is going to be the one who's talking about on Wednesday of the event, making sure that you get more visibility for your group coaching program using IG Reels and Stories. Now you're going to listen to Jocelyn, and you're going to create a video podcast, which creates content, which is going to create stuff for the search engine to get people keep coming to you. But the icing on the cake, the fun part of it all is that we can create some more visibility on IG using Reels and Stories. And Natasha Samuel, who is delightful, I love talking to her, and she's just so cute. I love her. She is going to be there Wednesday talking to us. And then we have 2 panels on Thursday that I want you to tune into. One, the client experience, which I'm super excited about that one, because we have 4 ladies who have spent over 20K in coaching programs this past year. But I don't care about that. What I care about is that they're going to talk about their experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly. And, but they're going to talk about, like, this is why I chose this program. These are elements of the programs that I really love. We're not dropping names unless it's a good thing. We're not dropping names, but what we're doing is we're trying to give you guys ideas of different elements that you can place in your program that really were a hit with clients. So we have that on Thursday. That's first things first, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then we have the panel to end all panels. I'm so excited about this. The Real Coaches of Online Business is going to be, and I always say the Real Housewives, but they're the Real Coaches. It's a spoof, a fun parody on the Real Housewives and a reunion special. We are going to be decked out. We're going to be throwing all the shade and the petty, but not really. No fighting. But it's going to be a very fun very, very fun panel discussion with 5 amazing women who are actually running successful group coaching programs. I want to make sure that you tune in. It's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern time on April the 14th on the event. And again, if you're not plugged in, if you're not actually got a ticket, here's the time to get that ticket, fempreneuronline.com/event. And you will be able to grab a free ticket if you want to just watch with us live, or if you want to watch replays, get the Coach Connection pass. So I am back with Jocelyn. That was a lot to say, but well, let's go back to the question. The question was, I'm creating a group coaching program this year. What would be a good roadmap in starting? Because you said video podcasting is the thing to do. What would be a good roadmap to starting creating that content that's going to fuel my group coaching program if I start it later this year? Yeah,
great question. So number one, what's super important is that you align your content with your actual offer. So if you are just, getting started with your group coaching program, you need to know what your tangible result is, your program promise. What is somebody joining for? What is the result that they're getting? Because that's going to really create the foundation of your content. And then on that note as well, going back to what we touched on earlier in our conversation, understanding your framework and how it's different than what else is out there, because you are probably creating this group coaching program because you have a different approach than other solutions out there. You made things work differently for you or for your clients. And that is also going to be key, understanding what makes you different, because that will help you position your content and your show in a really unique way. Because we don't just want another, there is plenty of content out there, right? There's already a podcast, video show, content in general on your area of expertise. There's millions of pieces of content. So we want to make sure that when we create a show for you, that it is positioned in a way that is different than other things. So that really comes through, again, what result you're promising, what makes you different and what makes your approach different, and then literally how we actually structure your show. So that's the first piece to really think about, is really understanding, what my result is, why that matters for my buyers, and how I get them that result differently than anybody else out there. That's going to make your messaging for your program really good, through your copy and your sales page and all of that. And then it's also going to make the angle of your show really unique so that it stands out and calls in the right people and not just like a general group of people.
Yeah. Okay. That's the first thing. That's the first thing. How far out should we really be batching this content? Because we all know the search engine the search engine is a little bit more long-term. So you're not going to get those results right away. When should we expect, oh, maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but when should we expect to kind of see the results? Because if I do this podcast and I fuel that search engine is not going to pay money until a little bit longer. How long does that normally take, Jocelyn?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of nuance there because it depends on everything from what's called your domain authority. So that's like how authoritative Google says your website is.
Yeah.
So if you are somebody who has built your business really successfully on guest speaking, right? And you have a lot of people linking to your website and, you've spoken maybe at some in-person events or at, some pretty big things, and you have some pretty big brands linking to you, your domain authority is going to be really higher versus like I just put my website up a couple months ago. So I've got no domain authority yet. Maybe like one person is linking to my site. So it's going to take me a lot longer to rank for something that it will somebody else who has that domain authority. You also have to look at what keywords you're targeting and how competitive they are and how many searches they get a month as well. So that's the kind of two sides of it is your brand and how authoritative Google determines your brand to be, and then also the keywords itself and how competitive. So when you're just getting started with search content, going after low-hanging fruit is what we call it in the SEO world, the keywords that have lower traffic, but are super targeted to what you do and have low competition are going to be a lot better, even if they're only getting like 1,000 searches per month.
But that's 1,000 people coming to your
1,000
site, right?
people, that could potentially be clicking through to your website. So again, we get caught up in kind of like these numbers of like, oh, I want to, be ranking for this one that gets 500,000. And it's like, why not have 1,000 perfect people who are, searching for
exactly what
so
you
specifically.
do, all those sort of things. So what I'm hearing, hopefully what I'm hearing is that if we're going for the search engine and we're like, okay, I'm gonna feed the search engine, but I'm gonna feed the search engine for that low hanging fruit, those words that are maybe searched a little bit less, but like your content really speaks to that particular keyword, then I should expect or probably will end up with more, I wouldn't say more leads, but more targeted people coming to my site. Maybe not 1 million people, but those 1,000 people. And that's a lot, 1,000 people to come to your site. So I should focus on that low hanging fruit.
Yeah, focus there. And then you ladder up as you start getting your domain authority and as you start ranking for different things. And the beauty of when you create a video, there are different keywords and different competitiveness for video content versus podcast content versus Google content. So you're, again, tapping into all three of those and really leveraging, that visibility there and getting some different sources too. So even if like Google is more competitive for that particular keyword, maybe nobody's made a video on it yet, or maybe nobody's made a podcast episode on it yet. So there's a lot of opportunity.
There is. Okay, y'all. We have had a mouthful, but a really good morsel of mouth savoriness. I'm thinking about food. I'm hungry. But that's okay, because remember I said we have the ups and downs. I'm going into the I'm hungry downfall. But thank you, Jocelyn. This has really been an eye-opener, I think, and I hope for a lot of people, because, again, what I didn't think like, oh yeah, I'm creating a video podcast. And quite frankly, that video is going to end up being like social media content. But you're literally telling me, no, take it and put it in the search engine and have the search engine get into it. And I didn't think about it like that, but I guess I'm gonna have to.
Your gut intuition is pulling you in the right direction,
right? And it's funny because it's been slowly doing that, especially with creating the podcast, the audio version. I just was like, the video version is going to kind of sit there, but you're telling me something a little bit different that is making me kind of like, I did the work. Might as well let me get credit for that work. So I totally thank you for doing that. So let me know, Jocelyn, where we can find you, what you have coming up, and let's get together soon, because I have something for you that I think would be a fun thing to do.
Yay!
A fun collab.
Me too. I have
like I was just like, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, this could probably be a good fit there. But yeah, let us know what you have coming up, and let us know how we can follow you on social.
Yeah, so you can head over to Instagram and follow me at Connect Through Content. That's where I hang out most. I'm kind of inconsistent there, to be honest, because I'm not a social person, but I will always be engaging and in the DMs. So you're free to hop in and say hi and introduce yourself. And then, yeah, in terms of what's coming up, I'm just working on selling my VIP day. So I, help people launch their video podcasts. So if that interests you, you can always come into Instagram and chat with me about your show vision and what you're needing support with. And yeah, that's my whole focus for the year.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you be a part of this and give great information, you guys. Thank you, Jocelyn and Hannah, for this great information. I'm going to go ahead and clap. I'm by myself, but that's okay. I'm going to clap. I'm going to clap for being a part of the pre-party, our very first pre-party session. Thank you for doing this, for sure.
Yeah, this was so fun. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So if you'll stick around, just stick around, girl. I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay. So make sure, again, we're coming to the end. I know it's the 2:00 hour. We just kind of kept talking, and it was getting better and better and better. So I kept talking with her. Anyway, so make sure that you have your tickets at Fempreneur Coach Connection live. Shout us out in the comments if you're going to be there. Let us know you'll be there. If you already have your ticket, Hopin, Hopin, the event platform that we're using, is actually already open. The reception area is open. So go in there, go into the chat, let us know, hey, I'm here, what's going on, and check in so we know that you got into the system okay. When you go to the main page, it'll have at the very top a banner that'll say something like go inside the event or enter the event, because the event is already open to you in the reception area. You have a few little to-do tasks before the event starts, making sure that you subscribe. You guys subscribe to this podcast. And the name of the podcast is Fempreneur Coach Connection. Subscribe. It's already in all the places. The first episode is on Monday. The official start of the podcast will start. So make sure that you guys are doing that. Thank you so much for everybody who's been a guest on that podcast. And Jocelyn's also a guest on the podcast. So make sure you go and that you subscribe to the podcast. That's one of the things for you to do, even if you're not coming to the event. If you are coming to the event, again, go inside of the Hopin platform and chat with us. We have a playlist, y'all. I created a playlist for this. Like, it's a cute little playlist. If you know me, you know I love some boy bands. So pretty much every single boy band is in there. I'm probably adding a little bit more. We actually have a DJ for the event who's going to be there at 10:45 both days on the 13th and 14th to kind of get us ready, get us pumped for what's going on. So make sure that you come in a little early on the 13th and 14th. And last thing, I want to make sure that you guys know that that the pre-party session on Monday is happening. Monday, starting at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. We have 3 amazing speakers. We're going to have a great chat, all 3 of us, Nishama, Jackie, and Rosa. We're all 3 going to talk about different things. So, the Self-Love Church, the minister is coming. We're going to talk about starting a podcast and launching your podcast. Jocelyn talked about video podcasts. I'm working with Rosa right now in getting this whole podcast together. So hopefully that you have time for that. And then Jackie's talking about pre-launching. What should we do in our pre-launch time before our group coaching program? Like, how do you launch this thing? She's going to be talking about it on Monday in the pre-party session. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. You can watch the replay within Hopin. You can actually go there and watch the replay in the reception area. And thank you so much to all my guests today. Peace.